The AML market, I think, is divided into two major areas. One is the matured institutions or the top 500, 600 institutions of the globe which have had an AML program in place for many years. And then there are the tier 3 and tier 4 institutions globally which are right now on the cusp of coming from a manual system into a more automated system. So the AML market, if you were to divide, you will divide it into the matured institutions which have had a program, and the, I wouldn't say unmatured, but tier 3 and tier 4 institutions which are looking to automate their systems. So the tier 3 and tier 4 institutions, while they're looking to automate the systems, the matured programs are realizing some of the pitfalls and some of the inefficiencies of an existing automated system and trying to work around those or address those inefficiencies. The matured financial institutions have had a program, a transaction monitoring, a case management, an automated AML regulatory compliant program for 5-6 years till now. But what they are finding is that the program is not sufficient to keep their costs down. The costs are increasing. AML is considered a cost center, and institutions are constantly looking to manage that cost. At the same time, the regulators are coming after institutions, and some of the recent news which we have heard around AML and the pitfalls of or the sanctions which have been applied against global tier 1 institutions, we are seeing that banks are constantly struggling with getting a good meeting the regulatory requirements for AML purposes. So therefore, I think the banks are in this kind of like dilemma of how I can keep my costs down and at the same time meet the regulatory requirements. When I speak about AML challenges and how the banks are addressing, I'm focusing on the more matured institutions where there, I believe, are most of the challenges. So even though these matured institutions have a program in place, they are constantly, as I said, struggling with cost of compliance. They are struggling with meeting the regulatory requirements without increasing the cost. So one of the areas where banks are focusing is how they can automate the processes, how they can put sound investigative processes in the AML program, plus how they can take advantage of analytics to address the AML program. By applying analytics, banks are trying to do more with less, but at the same time meeting the regulatory requirements. To reduce the cost of AML compliance and improve the performance of their AML program, there are 2 or 3 distinct areas where the banks can focus. One is, we all call it as tuning, but I think it's more to do with analytics and modeling when it comes to AML transaction monitoring. Second area is their investigation process, their triage process. And third area is how you can make AML a better integrated part of your compliance ecosystem, how you can integrate it with your KYC system, how you can leverage some of the AML findings back into not only your AML program, but also in other regulatory compliance programs.